What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. A quick heads up, this week, Wednesday and Thursday, there won't be a typical Newswave because I'm going to the beach, taking the family to the beach. We're just going to spend a few days there, and I will still have videos that'll go live. I think I have some tech wave kind of stuff that'll get thrown in there. And hey, look on the bright side. This probably means that Nintendo will have a Direct this week just to spite me, although maybe I'll then reverse it and one-up them and do a full Direct reaction after it happens from the beach. Well, we'll see if all of that works out. But anyway, as for today, we do have some stuff to go over, which includes Nintendo accidentally leaking some Switch 2 games early. We also have what looks to be Microsoft with more information coming out around the layoffs and how it's kind of worse than we originally thought. And we have Virtuos chiming in on the potential and the ability of the Switch 2 and exactly where it falls in the system hierarchy. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Stop Killing Games, because previously we talked about how they were trying to make the push and get to 1 million signatures. Well, now you can see clearly has just crossed that without too much issue. Coming in now at 1.2 million signatures. Here's the thing though, as they're going to be going through this and verifying these signatures, they'll most likely find some that just don't meet certain requirements and they'll have to throw them out. And it's hard to say exactly how many, but it's still worth continuing to try to get signatures and bring this to light, because this is something I believe that it needs to be put in front of lawmakers. It has to be a spotlight on this thing. As we head towards the digital future, this is going to be a thing. What do you do with games when they run to end of life and there was no plan for them maybe having some sort of offline mode or a mode that can exist without having a call to servers constantly? Like Anthem, again, I know it's not the greatest game out there, but it is still a game that maybe people want to go back to in 10 years. Well, at the beginning of next year, it's shutting down, as in they're breaking the internet connection for it, online connection, which means it just can't function, despite the game being able to be played completely alone in like a single player format. So just want to throw that back out there. Still have a lot of work to do for Stop Killing Games. It's going to run until the end of this month. Also, Call of Duty WW2 did go into Game Pass. That was for PC and for Xbox, and it appears, at least on the PC side through the Windows Store, there was a bit of an issue. One that kind of leans into the idea of your entire computer being hacked. And look, we can see this posted. This is over on Call of Duty updates, where they say Call of Duty WW2 on PC Microsoft Store was brought offline while we investigate reports of an issue. You might be wondering, what issue is this? Well, it seems to be RCE or RCE exploits, or that's remote command execution, which, I mean, it's pretty serious. Someone can essentially take over your PC completely through Call of Duty WW2, specifically through the Windows Store. That version, for some reason, is running into this problem. And there were some screenshots that were being posted of this happening. And yeah, you can't really have a game out there that lets people take over other people's PCs, because who knows what happens after that connection is established there. So they've pulled it down for now. When will they put it back up? Hard to say. Could even be by the time you're seeing this video, but at least for now, they kind of have to work that out first. Let's talk about today's sponsor, Huel. Designed by expert nutritionists as a convenient way to get all the daily nutrients you need. They reached out to me to check out their Black Edition powder, which is a high-protein complete meal that's ready in seconds. Let's see here. 17 ounces of water to your shaker, 2 scoops of Black Edition powder, and shake for, we'll say, 20 seconds. I've been trying it for a few days now as a way to quickly get in 40 grams of protein around lunchtime, and it's been a great way to save time and keep moving during what's been a really busy time. Turns out new system launches to start off June makes for a hectic summer. The Black Edition powder contains all the nutrients the body needs, including protein, essential fats, carbohydrates, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. There are a bunch of different flavors, including banana, vanilla, cookies and cream, cinnamon roll, and strawberry shortcake. Huel also offers an unflavored and unsweetened version if you want to keep things neutral. My next move is going to be, I think, the variety box, which has a mix of smaller pouches, so I can try a bunch of different flavors just to see what sticks. Click the link in the description below to try Huel with 15% off today using my code SPAWN15. That's SPAWN15 for 15% off today. Thanks to Huel for sponsoring today's video. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo accidentally leaking some games that are coming up for the Switch 2. And so you remember how that CRT filter for the Nintendo 64 application that was shown off in a video, which, like, you can see it here. And this is their N64 Nintendo Classics features update, where they showed all this off in the Switch 2 exclusive feature that didn't go over the best online because it seems like something with the CRT filter that should work for even the Switch 1, right? But even though this video is a month old now, someone noticed something this weekend, and it happens around the 40-second mark. As like the settings menu is pulled up, naturally go through it, they blur the background part. So it's kind of an overlay. They blur out the back, which would have all your box arts, so you can focus in much more on some of the text or options that are in front of you. Well, I guess a person who was just watching realized something, or just noticed it, that the background looks like a familiar box art that's not part of the Nintendo 64 NSO library right now. So with that in mind, people started going through and matching up all kinds of box arts. So like Nintendo Everything just started like putting all these different X messages together. One from Mama Luigi saying, I looked into a bit more and other people have caught this before me. And Glover is also very clearly above Smash 64. I thought it was something else, like cross-reference every N64 box, and nothing else is remotely close. Smash Brothers seems to be the biggest one, by the way, that people are noticing here. But then there's also Donkey Kong 64, apparently, a game called Scars, and even Forsaken. So like, there have been a few people that have taken all the box arts, blurred it, and set it up here. So, like, 910 is one example where they have an image of all the box arts there, and kind of what people are sort of visualizing here. Okay, so I did see a good example from Andre at Game Explain, where he went ahead and just blurred out Smash Brothers, lined it up, and sort of did the layer, the layer setup where you can hide and then make it visible, so you can kind of go do the back and forth. And it looks about right. It's almost 1-to-1. And this all I know sounds crazy when you really think about it. It's like, that's where we are right now with looking at a heavily blurred background, and almost it is kind of, it's the squinting meme from X, like the GIF where people are like, oh, if you squint a lot, like really squint, you'll see it. Yeah, if you really squint, you'll see it. But also, yes, that's where we are, because everyone's kind of still waiting for a Nintendo Direct to happen. And when this starts to go around, people get excited because it's like, oh, look, something Nintendo related, some kind of announcement for this new system that I have. And there we are, people looking at the background for something like Smash 64. I will say, Smash 64 would be very exciting to see go into Nintendo Switch Online. It's a classic title from back in the day. For some, it may even open up the possibility of Smash Bros. Melee going into the GameCube app, and that's very possible, I guess. But Smash Bros. 64 is one of the, it's the original game in a massive franchise now, and it's one that probably, I'm sure many people haven't experienced. It is much more simplistic than where we are now with Smash Bros. Ultimate, clearly, but I still think having that kind of a classic title available right there would be awesome. Although the online play may be questionable. It's so hit or miss with that, though. So with the GameCube, as an example, we've been playing it a lot recently. Soul Calibur 2, Nate and I played online one night for a bit more than an hour, and it worked fine. But then we tried Mario Strikers recently when that dropped, and it wasn't great online with 4 people. It was stuttering, and it felt like you were always behind with your button presses, just based on the way that the latency was set up there online. So super shots were completely out the window. You just weren't going to do those, but the computer hit it every time. It's kind of have to turn it off. So Smash Brothers, maybe not the best experience online, but just offline, playing with some friends, it would be awesome. So sure, I hope this is indeed a thing, and maybe it's set up for a Direct coming up where they do that, or they can just drop an announcement of a new roadmap of titles if they want. Strange way for this to get out there, though. I'm not really sure. Did they just have like a build that's internal that just has this stuff available and they blurred it out? Well, if you remember with the Treehouse for the GameCube, they had Mario Strikers on there, and they realized it a little late, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, don't look at Mario Strikers." And then we all figured that's the next one up, I guess. Guess what? It was the next one up because it just came out. Next up, let's talk a bit more about Microsoft and their Xbox cutbacks that have been happening. And we've been getting more and more information around this as naturally the affected studios or people who have been laid off decided to just take to social media and share some of their frustrations. So the one, for example, is Romero Games, which, as you figure by the name, was founded and formed by John Romero back in 2015. Well, they had a contract with Microsoft, and we can see this is over on VGC. They're citing the Journal, where they say Romero Games was working on a first-person shooter made in Unreal Engine 5. According to the anonymous employee, there is a chance another publisher could swoop in and save the project. And Romero Games, but as of now, its operations have ended, saying, quote, "We're trying to find other ways of funding the project, but for now, it's completely closed and the studio is closed." That studio had more than 100 employees there, and it was all based on this contract with Microsoft. And when they made these cuts and pulled funding, that's kind of it. Like, you don't really have much of a future there when there's no way to be able to fund or back up your game that's probably been in development for a couple of years. And as we've seen with Microsoft, I mean, they were cutting games that, I mean, they cut out the initiative completely after they were around for 7 years. So probably a contract like this that might have been a couple of years in probably wasn't a huge deal for them. Unfortunately, though, this seemed like a game that we didn't see it or anything, but there seemed to be a lot of confidence around this game behind the scenes. And with, you assume, John Romero in his studio working on a first-person shooter in Unreal Engine 5, I mean, the ingredients are there, the components are there to make, you assume, a very good first-person shooter. Now, on top of that, Turn 10 did come up before, and it seemed like they had some pretty significant cutbacks, about half the studio, which I kind of speculated then where their place was, which would be mostly support. And, well, we can see this. This is over on Eurogamer with Fred Russell, who worked at the studio as content coordinator for 4 years until 2016, shared a post on Facebook with images from across his time working on the series, saying, quote, "Turn 10 Studios has shuttered the Forza Motorsport space and the team is no more. A very sad day for one of the best car racing video games. I loved my time there." In a follow-up reply, Russell added, "Forza Horizon will continue at this point." Another reply from Russell says, "The studio is open to support the Horizon side, shuttered the Forza Motorsport side only." So obviously a shame, because Forza Motorsport is like one of the original franchises for Microsoft. It goes back to the original Xbox. It was pretty much conceptualized as a competitor to Gran Turismo, and it's been alongside of it ever since. So this is a deep cut. I will say that for Microsoft's just overall lineup and catalog, and it does show a situation where the spin-off, that being Forza Horizon, overtook the original with Motorsport. Now that just leaves Turn 10, I guess, to work on the engine, which is like Forza Tech, and then help out with Forza Horizon, which we're kind of expecting a Forza Horizon game for next year. So I guess that's just what they've been working on there alongside of Playground Games, who's also working on Fable. But there we are. So I guess Forza Motorsport itself has been shelved probably indefinitely, and it's full speed ahead on the Forza Horizon side, which, yes, I know is just more popular, but there is something to having that long-standing franchise with Forza Motorsport that's legitimately been there since the beginning. We've had a Forza game on every single generation of Xbox up to this point. Now, we also had a report that came out from the Seattle Times that finally, I'd say, made the connection between what's happening here on the gaming side and what's happening at Microsoft overall. Now, this year, they have let go of 15,000 employees, and it does appear that this is, as some analysts and experts are saying, a retooling, quote unquote, as Microsoft is working to divert funds towards AI. At the beginning of this year, Microsoft mentioned that they would be investing $80 billion into AI this year. That's quite a bit of money, and it's a huge deal when they bought Activision Blizzard with $70 billion. So tack another $10 billion on top of that. That's how much they're looking to drop into AI this year. And the big thing now is there's some massive players. We look at gaming, and that's just like a small pond compared to the ocean of some of these companies altogether for this whole AI initiative right now. And it's a big competing race currently between companies like Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Tesla, big companies, like I said. And the push right now is for AGI, or artificial general intelligence, because apparently once they get there, going to artificial super intelligence will take significantly less time. because you'll have the AI work on the AI. And if you get general intelligence, which is just about how it can reason and think like us, and then they can push themselves up to super intelligence, and then you probably get Skynet or Voltron or Ultron, I should say. But we'll see how that works. Because look, here's the thing. AI is going to be disruptive one way or the other. It's all going to work out and AI is going to solve all our problems or turn on us and be our extinction. Or it's not going to work out and these big companies are going to burn like $500 billion and Perfect Dark will get canceled. So there you go. It's disruptive either way. And something tells me right now with Microsoft continue to retool, we're probably going to hear about more layoffs and cutbacks here probably over the next few weeks. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Virtuos, who had quite a bit to say about the Switch 2, its capabilities, and even its sales potential. Now, this was all done in an interview with WCCF Tech, and I'll have that link down below if you want to read through it, because there are many questions that were asked here. But first, let's start at the top here. This is from Owen O'Grady, who's the technical director at Black Shamrock, that's a Virtuos subsidiary, where they say gamers increasingly want AAA games on the go, and so I think we will see the Switch 2 surpass its predecessor, that being in terms of like sales. So they're thinking it might surpass the 150, 160 million mark. This is precisely because it is a Nintendo console renowned for innovation and its unique gameplay experiences, and because it meets the growing demand for gaming on the go, offering indie gems, Nintendo exclusives, now AAA blockbuster titles. When asked about kind of the abilities of the Switch 2 and where they would place it alongside of something like a Series S or a PS4. They say GPU-wise, the Switch 2 performs slightly below the Series S. This difference is more noticeable in handheld mode. However, the Series S does not support technologies like DLSS, which the Switch 2 does. This makes the GPU capabilities of the two consoles comparable overall. CPU-wise, there is a clearer distinction between the two consoles. The Switch 2 is closer to the PS4 in this respect, having a CPU just a bit more powerful than the PS4's. Since most games tend to be more GPU bound than CPU bound when well optimized, the impact of this difference largely depends on the specific game and its target frame rate. Any game shipping at 60 FPS on the Series S could easily port to the Switch 2. Likewise, a 30 FPS Series S game that's GPU bound could also port well. Games with complex physics, animations, or other CPU-intensive elements might incur additional challenges in reaching 30 or 60 FPS or require extra optimization during porting. And I think this is about where people have settled now with where the Switch 2 ranks, if you want to call it that, above the PS4 by a fair amount, since it also has a solid-state drive compared to the spinning hard disk in a PS4. So load times general, as we've already seen with comparisons, it's not even a competition there. But the Series S does just have a better CPU. I mean, it has to line up with the Xbox Series X CPU, because the big difference there is more so on, say, the memory bandwidth and the GPU side. All right, so any kind of serious computations and stuff on the CPU side has to still kind of line up and be one-to-one, more or less, between Series S and Series X, which, yes, does give it an advantage there. But if you have a game, say, running at 60 FPS on the Series S, and it does have some CPU limitations on the Switch 2, you might have it cut the frame rate in half, for example, down to 30, and then it still just port over without too many issues. And Virtuos does a lot of port work. So yes, they would know. Like, this is up their wheelhouse. So clearly, while you may look at that and be like, I don't know if it's going to hit 160 million consoles sold, you can look at what Virtuos says about things like CPU, GPU rankings, and where they believe it is in terms of power. And yeah, that's probably a very good or well-educated opinion on that one. But I think that's about right, where people are thinking it'll be around the Series S with some CPU limitations. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you currently subscribed to Game Pass? 73% say no, 27% say yes. So I do think right now, Game Pass has kind of plateaued, and you can say that because we haven't seen any new numbers, and you feel like if they were doing really well, they would just start throwing numbers around for Game Pass, because that also leans into subscription, which is what Microsoft really wants to do since they are a software company at heart. But if it has kind of plateaued there, like that 35 million or so mark, well, it's not going to get to the 100 million they were looking for by really towards the end of this decade. They were thinking by 2027 or 2028, they might be around that mark. I don't know if it's happening. Call of Duty is there, and while it's still sold pretty well, as we saw with the NPDs and stuff, it's not. It doesn't seem like it's really pushing Game Pass to the level they want it to, and that is kind of the question I have. If it does plateau, even with big franchises like Call of Duty there, how do you get Game Pass up to the 100 million mark, and is it even possible? That's the stuff Microsoft has to contend with here, especially when we're looking at how many studios they have and how many projects they have in the works. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Jan, who says, I have a feeling Arrowhead wanted this and bargained for it for a deal or partnership with PlayStation in the future, but I'm sure we'll hear more about this eventually. I think just Arrowhead wanted to do it in the first place. They were asked many times in their Discord, like more than a year ago, about an Xbox version. And Arrowhead's not owned by PlayStation, so in their mind, it's like, well, yeah, let's put it on this platform that's asking for it right now. But Sony is the one who has to weigh that and go, this makes sense for us because we're trying to get more people to the PlayStation. Maybe those are people that just are never going to come over, and this is a live service game, and we're already putting Marathon over there anyway. We're letting Bungie kind of work that out. Yeah, okay, maybe we can make that happen, and we'll just get more money from it. So I think we still need to see a big single-player game make the jump before people are like, oh, the floodgates have opened. Spider-Man's going, Horizon's going there. God of War will be on Xbox. I think we got to see a single-player game, somewhat large single-player game, go to another platform before we really start thinking about it that way. But hey, Helldivers 2 it's a big deal. PlayStation's publishing it. It's their IP, and now it's showing up on Xbox after a massively successful launch on PlayStation. Seems like they need more, and yeah, something tells me Arrowhead was right there just to give them the nudge to get them over the finish line. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card. Or maybe you'll hear more about the situation with Sony, Helldivers 2 on the Xbox, and another Sony franchise that I think could go to a different platform. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.